Hello, everyone. I am coming at you from a coffee shop outside, so hopefully there's not too much noise and you guys can hear me just fine. If at any point you can't hear me too well, just let me know in the comments and I can figure something out. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Have my coffee here. I also have some notes on my phone, so if you see me looking here, that's what I'm doing. But I just wanted to hop on and quickly introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name's Alexa Weibel, and I live in Waco, Texas. So if you live in the area or not, so happy to have you and to be talking about this with you today. I am married to my husband. We've been married for over 7 years, and we have a 13-month-old son named Davis, who is so fun right now. Just learned to walk like a month ago, and he's crazy. So we're kind of navigating that whole new life now. I have been working in the fitness industry for almost, this year will be 6 years. Been doing personal training. And just to give some background, before I got pregnant, I was working out pretty intensely. I was doing CrossFit myself, so I did the 2017 CrossFit Open, maybe 2016, or both, don't remember, but I was really into CrossFit. I was lifting heavy weights, pushing myself in the gym, and I loved it. And it was just part of my lifestyle as a trainer and being in the fitness world. So that was my own training journey leading up to when I got pregnant in 2017. All of a sudden, there wasn't a ton of guidance on how to make fitness work for me in this new chapter of my life in pregnancy. The general guidance I got was to, sorry, there's some kids that just came out, was to not lift more than 20 pounds, which someone who is lifting heavy weights, deadlifting 230 pounds, squatting, 190 or whatever, it was just very generic advice, and to just listen to my body. And those things were really challenging for me, again, because it wasn't individualized for me. And secondly, because I didn't know how to listen to my body, because I was an athlete. I was a CrossFitter. We are trained to push past the voice in our brain that's telling us to stop and pull back. We're trained to push through that and to work harder and to get results. And so it's really hard to tell someone to just listen to their body when they don't know what to listen for. So I decided to be my own experiment in my pregnancy. I got a certification through Fit for Birth for pre and postnatal corrective exercise, which was really helpful. Started working with pregnant and postpartum women who wanted to exercise smartly in their pregnancies and after. And then I also got Brianna Battle's pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coaching certification, which was a huge help. And a lot of us PNPA coaches through her program are addressing the open and how to help you guys navigate these workouts as we go through. So that's why I'm here. Then I had a baby and have been navigating postpartum for the past year, and it's been a journey, and it always is. And once you're postpartum forever. And so I love the open. When I participated in it a few years back, it was just so fun, so challenging, just a great atmosphere to go through with your gym. And so I really wanted to address this because I feel like nowadays there's kind of a wide population of women in their pregnancies or maybe newly postpartum. We've kind of gone from we have people who are really scared to work out or scared to do things like lift weights or maybe push themselves. And now we kind of have also a pendulum swing to the other side of the hashtag fit pregnancy, the people who kind of have an ego, who need something to prove, who don't really want to give up this huge part of their identity, which we do see with a lot of CrossFitters and something that I really struggled with. So I feel you there. So we have those wide ranges. And the goal is to approach the open, not with fear, of you can't do anything, but also without ego or anything to prove. And let's find something in the middle here. where we can participate, where we can have fun, but we can make the workouts work for you. The truth is the workouts will always be there. 5 to 10 plus years down the road, if you're like, wow, I really want to do, I never did 19.4 RX and I want to try it, then you can do it then. You could do it 2 years from now. You can do it anytime. So this is not like an urgent, like you have to do these workouts exactly as they are right now. So let's do them in a way that works for you in the chapter that you're in. The goal of the open is to test your fitness where you are right now. And so with that, we have to make the open workouts work for you. You have to make them work in a way that tests your fitness in a smart way and isn't pushing you beyond your limits. So we're going to jump into some practicals here. Number one is super important, is to see a pelvic floor physical therapist. So even if you're pregnant, you can see one. If you're postpartum, definitely you can see one. You have to ask your doctor in Texas for a referral, but it's always worth it to get a referral. They're going to give you really specific advice on what's going on in your body, in your pelvic floor, in your core, and give you the guidance that you need. So see a pelvic floor physical therapist and work with them through your fitness journey. You will not regret it. Number two, any movement that causes you leaking, pain, bulging or pressure, kind of feeling like a tampon's falling out, or like a chronic back pain, or like a chronic pain in your core, should be adjusted or modified. Those are all signs that that there's some kind of dysfunction either in that movement or in your core or your musculature. These are signs not to push through. So I know of a lot of women who do double unders just because they can, but they're like, oh, I need to wear my black pants so you don't see me pee all over the place. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to wear a pad to go work out. What you need to do is learn how to work with your core as a unit and how to strengthen it effectively and correctly so that you don't have to deal with those things like when you're 80 years old, you know what I mean? And you can eventually do double unders again without worrying about those symptoms. So anytime, any movement that's in the open where you experience leaking or pain or like a feeling like there's pressure or a tampon falling out, you need to pull back on those, at least for now, and get help. So that's the second one, and that's a big one. I really don't want to see anyone pushing through those symptoms just for the sake of the open. It's just not worth it. Those are signs from your body and biofeedback that we need to pull back. And it's okay. It's not a bad thing to have to pull back for a season and to really hone in on the foundations of your core and pelvic floor health. A big thing, number three, as we go into the open, is I want you to start thinking about managing the pressure in your core. So what I mean by that is, like, let's think like you're doing a 1 rep max deadlift, okay? We know how it all goes. You go down, bend over, you're picking up the bar, and you really hold your breath and like strain, and you're like pushing pressure downward. You may even be wearing a weight belt, and so you're like pushing pressure out against that weight belt as you're lifting. So that there's a time and place for that, but that is not managing the intra-abdominal pressure in a way that's supportive for your core and pelvic floor health. I usually say in the pregnancy, obviously, and postpartum periods, not a good time to just like do a 1 rep max. So if we see that in the open, I would really recommend not doing that, not pulling back, being able to do a weight where you can manage that pressure. And so what I mean by that is, can you get through the movement and can you breathe through the movement? There's already a lot of stress and pressure placed on your abdominal wall and your pelvic floor in pregnancy, obviously, and then postpartum, that stuff is still healing. And so it's really important just to be aware, like, are you adding to that stress? So are you pushing more pressure outward against that abdominal wall by breath holding? Are you pushing pressure downward, like by bearing down, kind of that as you're lifting? And a really good way to monitor that is just, hey, are you breathing through your movement? So when you're coming up out of the bottom of a thruster, are you able to exhale? Something to really think about is, when are you breathing? Are you breath holding? Can you exhale through the exertion? So out of the bottom of a squat, through the lifting part of a deadlift, pushing up from a push-up. Can you exhale through that exertion? Okay, that's a really good test of that. And not only can you exhale, but as you exhale and you're pushing, out of the bottom of a squat, pushing out of the bottom of a thruster, are you able to lightly draw on your pelvic floor so that air can go in and up and not go down against your pelvic floor? So that's going to be really key for managing that intra-abdominal pressure. Can you exhale? Can you let that air come up and out rather than like down and outward? And I hope that makes sense. Another thing to think about, this is number 4, is how is your body positioning? So taking thrusters for an example, that's kind of it can be kind of a risky, I don't want to say risky, but can be a high pressure movement for pregnancy and postpartum, because a lot of times they're called thrusters. It's a very thrusty movement. As you're coming out of the bottom, a lot of times when we get fatigued, our chest kind of thrusts forward, and our back kind of arches, and the rib cage is really rung up rather than like being stacked over the hips in like an aligned position. So what's that going to do is that's going to place more pressure against the abdominal wall. If you think about if there's a little separation there and you're really stretching that out, it's going to place more pressure on that. And so alignment is important too. Are your ribs stacked over your hips? Are your ribs or hips really like thrust one way or the other? Are they tipping forward? Are they pushing back? What are weird overcompensations that you're doing as you fatigue? Those are all things to think about. Another thing is kipping pull-ups. Is that position where we're really overextended, is that going to be helpful for a healing abdominal wall? I don't know. It's probably not. And so that's just something to think about. Yes, you can do them, but should you in this chapter? I want us to really be thinking about long-term health and long-term functionality as we enter the open. Like, sure, in the next 5 weeks, there's going to be things that you could maybe really push yourselves to do. But is it really going to benefit you? Is it really going to help your long-term core and pelvic floor? Or is it just going to like habituate movement patterns that are not good and not efficient and not helping your core strength and your pelvic floor? The core operates as a unit, so we have to learn how to use the abs in addition to the diaphragm and in addition to the pelvic floor, and how all of those work together as a unit rather than like I'm just sucking in and drawing my abs, bracing my abs, but I'm not breathing, I'm not thinking about my pelvic floor, I'm not doing, not working it all together as a unit. So those are all just things to think about, which I know that sounds really vague, but it's really individual depending on your tendencies, depending on your pelvic floor, your core, what you need. But if we think about managing intra-abdominal pressure, so not bearing down or pushing out as we breath hold, or really like to push through a movement, and then also making sure that our body is in good alignment, that's really going to help those things. Last thing I really want to cover is just this idea of risk versus reward. And if you follow us pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coaches, this is something that we preach about a lot. And what I mean by that, I want to clarify, is that I'm not talking about risk to the baby if you're pregnant. Any pregnant mom is thinking about what's safe for the baby. That's not even a question anymore. Of course she's not going to like flop on the ground belly first or do anything really crazy. If you are, then that's a whole other story. But I'm not even talking about risk to the baby at this point anymore. But what are the risks to you as the mom, your long-term core and pelvic floor health? So let's take running for an example. Maybe you're in your second trimester. You can run, sure. You could like get up and run and do it fine. You could maybe even do it in the same, pace or timing that you could pre-pregnancy. So it's not about if you can do it, but what is the risk of that? Well, you already have a stressed pelvic floor with this baby that's like hanging out on it. You know what I mean? And your abs are already starting to separate. There's some pressure placed on there. And so is a high impact movement over and over and over again, like running, is that going to be really helpful for you and for your pelvic floor? Probably not. It's going to place more stress on an already stressed system. Okay, so there's that risk. The risk is it could perpetuate maybe some long-term core issues. The reward is that, maybe you're getting some cardio training or endurance. Well, can we get that reward a different way? Can you hop on a rower? Can you hop on a bike? Can you do endurance training in a different capacity to still get the desired reward or stimulus without exactly having to do it in that manner? And so that's the mindset that I want us to go into the open with, is risk versus reward. Like, what is the risk to my core and pelvic floor? Is this a high pressure movement that's going to place more stress on an already stressed system? And if so, like, what is the reward of that? What is the desired outcome that I'm trying to get from this movement? And is there a different stimulus or a different way that I can do it that will not have these risks as well? So some ideas. Let's just talk about different practicals. And as we go through the next 5 weeks, I'm going to give you specific ideas and practicals as they announce the open workouts. Obviously, right now, we don't know what's going to be in the workouts, so this is just a shot in the dark. But once they announce them and we know exactly what we're working with, then I can send you some different ideas and options depending on what you need. But let's say, pull-ups. People are going to be doing butterfly, kipping pull-ups, and it can be really tempting to want to do that in this chapter. Even if you're healing postpartum, like if you're healing a diastasis, is it going to be helpful to get in that overextended position? What are pull-ups meant to do? They're meant to work, they're a pulling movement, so they're meant to work the pulling muscles, the back, and to get you stronger in that area. So you could do ring rows. You could set up rings and do rows like that. You can even set up a bar and kind of get parallel to the ground underneath it and pull yourself up that way and do it strict. And just something where you're pulling, even a bent over row with a barbell, just go direct. Like, say if there's 21 pull-ups, just do 21 bent over rows instead. That's still going to give you that desired stimulus and challenge you. Let's say you have double unders. Can you sub some rowing? Like, if you have 100 double unders, that's supposed to take you about a minute, can you sub a minute of rowing instead? And what could that look like? Anyone who's in the pregnancy period, I would not recommend really doing double unders or jump rope. And just to clarify, single unders are still jump roping, and they're not a good enough modification for double unders. You're still jumping. So just be thinking of other things you can do, maybe hopping on the bike, maybe some kind of step up, just kind of like, let's start to think outside the box. Like, what is the desired stimulus? Is it cardio? Is it getting your heart rate up? Is it a pulling exercise? Is it pushing? Is it a squat? Is it a hinge? And let's find other options for these movements that can work with us and work with our long-term core and pelvic floor health and not against us. So I hope that helped you kind of think differently about the next 5 weeks. It can still be exciting and fun, and you can still do different modifications than what they're offering through the scaled versions. I hope that makes sense. So you guys stay posted. I have a link to sign up via email so you can get those updates in your email inbox. I know it's hard to kind of stay updated on Facebook, and especially in a Facebook event. It can be kind of tricky. And so just make sure you hit up that link. I'm going to put it in the comments as well. And you will get my modification ideas and considerations for each workout every week as they announce the workouts, and it'll be delivered to your inbox. And so that's going to be a huge help and resource to you guys as we navigate the next 5 weeks. Please feel free to message me or comment with any questions, and I'd love to help you in the open. Have fun, you guys.